All right, guys, thank you so much for waiting. I know it's been a little while, but they were just getting everybody on board. And I want to thank you all for your patience and sticking around. So good evening. First, I want to thank you. And again, thank you for taking the time to join tonight. Seeing right now, we're like, wow, that's okay. We're close to 800 people at this point. Thank you. I'm honestly, I'm humbled by this. And, it really says something powerful about Surfside. It says that we care enough care enough about our town and our future to show up and to listen and engage, and that's really the most important thing right now. And really, I'm deeply grateful to each of you tonight for joining. For those who may be new to Surfside and may not be aware, I had the honor of serving as the mayor here from 2022 to 2024. Yes, we have very short cycles here. My journey to Surfside began back in 2010 when my wife and I chose this town as our place to raise our family. At the time, we had 4 children. Today, we're blessed with 5. Our last one is our Florida baby. And we didn't just move here. We built our entire lives here. This is where our children, we moved when they were much younger. They grew up here. They went to school here. They've had their sleepovers. They made their friends. And my wife and I, we've been very fortunate to form very lasting relationships while we've been here. From the moment we arrived, I believe that being part of a community means to serve it. And so as soon as I got here, I ran the youth program at our local synagogue. I served on the security board at my synagogue for the last 12 years. And for the last 4 years, I've been volunteering with Hatzalah, which I know it makes a lot of noise, but it's a volunteer emergency medical response organization. You see it operating here all the time. And this is a way that we give back. And that same commitment led me to serve our town. Throughout the years, I've served on the Parks and Recreation Committee. I've served on many boards and other special committees that were formed to give input. And eventually I ran for the town council here in 2020 because I really believed that I could contribute more and represent the families here in Surfside. Ultimately, I ran for mayor in 2022 because I believed Surfside needed focus and result-driven leadership. During my term together with the commission, we accomplished a great deal. We opened 3 new parks. We introduced first-class beach share service for residents. We added lighting along the beach path to improve safety. We installed outdoor exercise equipment to promote health and wellness. We launched 47 new programs and enhanced our town events that brought many, many families and neighbors together. We initiated a comprehensive stormwater master plan to combat flooding. We advanced practical resiliency solutions, and we strengthened public safety through thoughtful legislation and upgraded technology. These were not just line items on the budget, they were tangible improvements to daily life in Surfside that everybody was able to feel. So at this point, you may be asking yourself, if I accomplished so much, why was I not reelected? And that's a very fair and it's a great question. And I want to answer it honestly. When I came into office, I was hyper-focused on achieving objectives. I've been sitting around for years. We all were waiting for certain things to happen, and I tended to focus on that. I wanted to move quickly and deliver results. The 2-year terms, make us move much faster than anticipated. But leadership is not only about what you accomplish, it's also about how you bring people along with that ride. And Surfside was evolving. Change was happening here, but residents needed to feel more included in that process. The role required more patience, more diplomacy, and a steadier temperament than I demonstrated at times. Being completely honest with everybody here on this call, after all the hard work and time I put in over those 2 years, losing the election was very difficult for me. But it was also one of the most important experiences of my life. It forced me to reflect and gave me perspective. Serving as mayor taught me a great deal, but the last 2 years taught me even more. In public office, most decisions have a binary result, one way or the other, and somebody will always disagree. It's impossible to make everybody happy. But it's absolutely possible to ensure that even when people disagree with the outcome, they still feel heard, respected, and included. And that's my commitment to you, the residents of Surfside. Over the past 2 years, I've made a conscious effort to reach out to residents who did not support me before. Not to argue, not to convince them of anything, but to listen, to understand their concerns, and to engage in the kind of civil dialogue that our town has been missing. And I can tell you that those conversations have changed me. and they've strengthened me, and they've really prepared me for the next step. If given the opportunity to serve again, I will lead with the same drive to deliver results, but with greater patience, greater humility, and a deeper commitment to unity. Surfside deserves leadership that gets things done and brings people together. Tonight, how many are on this call right now? We're close to 1,000 at this point. I feel hopeful, and I feel grateful, and I feel ready. So thank you for your trust over the last couple of years, for your time, and for your belief in the community we all love. Together, we can move Surfside forward, stronger, more united, and proud of the town that we call home. So before I get into some of the issues, I did advertise that we'll talk about some of the larger issues here in Surfside. But if you're just joining, this is supposed to be a live Q&A. And the goal was not just for me to talk, but to get you to be part of that conversation. So if you're just joining, please press *3 on your phone. An operator will pick up. They'll get you on the queue, and you'll be able to join the conversation, to talk and ask your questions. If you're a little nervous to speak, you can just tell them what you would like, and they'll put that on that screen for me. This is my first time being a radio DJ, so bear with me as this is a learning experience for me. And then we'll open that up. So I'm going to start talking about a couple of the issues that I advertised, starting with probably one of the most important issues. But before I do, I want to hear actually from you guys, if you're all on the phone. I want to hear what you think the most important issue is, and we'll address that and talk about it accordingly. So what, in your opinion, Surfside, is the biggest challenge facing us today? And if you have your phone out, you can press 1 for traffic, 2 for overdevelopment, 3 for flooding and resiliency, 4 for pedestrian safety, and 5 for something that I haven't said. And so I'll say those answers again. The first one, press 1 if you think traffic is our biggest issue. Press 2 if you think overdevelopment is our biggest issue, and that could be commercial, residential. Press 3 if you think flooding and resiliency is the biggest issue. Press 4 if you think pedestrian safety is one of the biggest issues. And press 5 if I've completely missed the ball on this. So, I'll give that a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back to that. So I guess we have some questions ready. We have some people that are being screened. All right, Ken. Ken is asking, why do you think, I guess he doesn't want to get on the call, but thank you for the call, Ken, and thank you for the question. Why do you think you were not elected again for your second term, and what will you do differently this time? So I kind of covered, and I take responsibility for a lot that I was lacking over those 2 years. It's not, as I said, it's not just about your performance and what you can do, but it's also how you go about doing it. Additionally, we do face challenges getting messaging out. It's difficult to measure success, right? If you walk out and the street is clean and everything's working and the staff is ongoing, nobody really pays much attention, except people hear the noise. And that stands out a lot. And our messaging, it was very difficult to get that out. But again, lack of diplomacy, I came in like a steamroller, as I said, to just, get projects done, get things moving. I've lived here for over 16 years now. I sat on, like I said, the Parks and Rec Committee and other things. We talked about a new park for over 10 years, and we just wanted to get it done. If the slide wasn't great, we said we'd change it later. But the idea is that, we just came in focused on the results without that, without the journey and bringing the residents on board and making sure that everybody had a voice in that process as opposed to what it was that we just wanted. So I hope that answers the question. What will I do differently this time? It's something that I should have done the first time around, and that's make sure that everybody feels part of that process. I'll be listening a lot more intently. I can tell you that I've been having some really great conversations with people that I never even thought would sit down with me, and I've learned a lot. And I'm sure I'll be talking about some of it later on this call. In the meantime, let's call, I see Esther. Esther, if you're willing to speak.
Yes, hi.
Hey, Esther, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good.
I want to know what's going on. Good. I want to know what's going on with the post office that closed What do they propose to put there? It's an eyesore now.
So the post office, first of all, I mean, that's something I can tell you. Moving from Brooklyn, the post office was one of the things that stood out for me. You know, coming from Brooklyn and getting in the post office, everyone was always on break and they were talking to each other and you just stand in line. This place remembers your name when you walked in. You know, the service, I think there was a sign, like, if we haven't served you in less than 2 minutes, call a manager. Like, it was really, you know, very different from what I experienced in New York. And it was something that I don't think appreciated until it was done just now. But unfortunately, due to federal budget cuts, they kind of consolidated and went down to 71st Street. What's going to happen with that building right now, there was a Live Local project. And for those that don't know what it is, a Live Local proposes affordable housing, which allows the developer to bypass zoning restrictions that are in place in cities like Surfside, provided that they build some affordable housing. And that was a proposal that was put in there. They want to tear it down and essentially build a 12-story building. I will get into that a little bit more later on in the call. But we would love to see if we can bring that post office back here, because that's definitely something that we're missing, and I don't think we knew how much we were missing it until it moved. So thank you for that question. Mikey? Am I pronouncing this right? Micah, you're on, I guess.
Is it me talking?
Yeah, how do you pronounce it?
Mikhail.
Oh, I'm sorry. The L completely dropped off of that. I'm sorry about that.
Don't worry about it. I just wanted to know about the power lines and the project of putting everything underground.
Okay.
What happened with that? Is that in your plans?
Yeah, so the undergrounding was proposed. I think it was offered, you know, they put out a referendum in 2022 asking residents if they wanted to pay up to $40 million for the project. We came into office and really started assessing the project, and you know, the people that came before us didn't really put a lot of work into it. So, for example, that proposal of $40 million did not include the cost to replace people's driveways or hedges or even fixing the road after, you know, they dig down and do this project. And it wasn't really based on a number. It was an assessment and just a projection. And when we started looking into it, the prices were coming back a lot higher. But we committed, you know, to the residents to finish that study, because first you have to do a study to find out what that project is actually going to cost. Government has to, especially if you're going to go and pull a bond and put residents into debt, it's the government's responsibility to get the full price and the full scope of the project, present the residents with that full scope, and let you know where the funding is coming from and what it's going to cost you. So I didn't get to finish that project. The current commission proposed it. They went up to $80 million. Regardless, they put a proposal on a referendum this past year, and residents spoke that they don't want to go into debt for a project like this. Now, we all need it. You know, our streets flood. Streets are horrible. Some of these poles are like 30, 40-degree angles. Wires are hanging. If you go to Bay Drive, I mean, it's always being knocked down by a truck. It's very dangerous. There was actually somebody that died in the city building a building. I won't say where, because he turned around with something in his hands and hit the wire. So it's very dangerous. There's no question that it has to be fixed. Where we are now is we really have to focus on funding and grants from state and federal, because residents spoke that they don't want to be paying for this. They don't want to be paying for it for the next 30 years. And out of respect for the residents' requests, it would be my job to go back to Tallahassee, to go up to D.C. and bring back money, right? Bay Harbor is bringing in money for their bridge. That's government's role and that's government's job. And again, I'll get to it a little later, but it's our role as elected officials to represent the city and bring back money for this project. So I would definitely, coming into office, I'll be prioritizing this and making sure that we can get the funding so residents don't have to be put into debt to get this done. But it definitely has to be done, both for safety, aesthetics, and everything else that falls in line with that. And thanks for the question. Frank, I know your last name because I could see the question, but I won't say it out of respect. Frank, you're on.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor. I have two questions tonight. The current commission has put into place a school bus that roughly 35 children ride it daily at the cost of $120,000 for 10 months. That's about $24 per day per trip per child. Do you wish to continue this, or how do you feel about it? My second question has to deal with our children that are riding e-bikes and scooters, and they're really not obeying the state laws and the current signage in our town. It's problems in our residential area, and I'm very worried we're going to have a child be hurt very badly because of e-bikes. I'd like to hear your opinion on these items.
All right. Thanks for the question. Vice Mayor, I appreciate that. For those that don't know, he is very humble, but he served for our town for many years, and I appreciate the question. So this bus going up to $125,000, and I get, just so residents understand, it's not coming out of taxpayer money, it's coming out of the transportation fund, which is the half a penny. Essentially, anyone who takes a bus, public transportation, the city gets a percentage of that transportation tax back to what's called the enterprise fund, a transportation fund, which would fund, fixing the roads or the bus stops. We had to do a project that made it more ADA compatible and moved them back. But it's still $120,000 for a bus is a lot. I think there was a few projects, like the Freebie project is funded by that as well. And that really got out of hand from what it was. I think we were looking at some of the calculations. It's also $30, $40 a ride it's coming out to for a resident to go 3 blocks to Publix. And it's a little ridiculous. Unfortunately, a lot of people take, advantage of government. That has to be reeled back in. And we're going to make sure that we don't want to cut services to residents. That would be, we want to increase that. School bus was always one of the initiatives we wanted to look into, but it does have to be affordable. We can't have 6,000 people paying for, 20 people to get a ride to school. But definitely we are going to revisit it. We're going to bring buses that comply with the laws, that have the arms that stick out, not a coach bus. They're going literally 2 blocks. So we're going to definitely revisit that project. Now, as far as the second question, and I'm sorry I'm rushing through, but, we're burning time, and I want to make sure that we get to a lot of the questions that are here. The scooters and safety, as you said, and I know you're more aware than others, the state is and has been looking to pass legislation that will allow us. Right now, it's considered a bicycle, it's a scooter, but it will put more responsibility on the drivers and on the parents, both for helmet, speed. One of the issues we face in our town that a lot of people aren't aware is that our roads actually belong to the county, and the county, the speed limit in our town, even though it's posted 20, is actually 30. So when you think somebody is driving back, by your house really fast, unfortunately our police can't even really get involved and give them a ticket because the actual legal limit, according to the county, is 30 miles an hour. That was something I tried to change the last time around. I was new to the position and I didn't understand how to go about doing that. I met with Mayor Daniela Cava at the time. She was not very helpful, but according to the county charter, only the county commission can change this and legislate it. And I have enough friends on this commission at this point that will make this a priority so we can actually enforce the rules that we see around here. Because right now, our police don't have the tools to do that. David. David, are you on?
Oh, hello.
Oh, hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Yourself?
Are you in favor of the Live Local Act or against it?
Great question. So I was actually made aware of Live Local back when it was still kind of just a talking point up in Tallahassee before it was actually legislation. I knew, coming from Toronto, I grew up in Toronto, for those that don't know. Where I grew up, it was essentially farmland, and suddenly it got so overdeveloped that our roads could not manage the traffic, and you can't walk anymore, and it's not enjoyable. So improving infrastructure before you start increasing density is key. And, living on a barrier island with literally one street going north to south, quadrupling density here and in a place where we already can't move is not feasible. And so I went down to Tallahassee to try to fight this bill. I've been asking for carve-outs and pieces that would exempt, the barrier island going from Miami Beach all the way up. And it is something that I definitely am opposed to. not because affordable housing, but because this is really just, a bypass to allow developers to get around local ordinances and zoning. Unfortunately, and I'm going to touch on the post office project because that was submitted here in Surfside, unfortunately, this law does supersede, it's state law, and it removes the municipalities from this, from even the approval process, right? They don't even have to go to the city for approval. It's by right. It's called by right. Now, the intent of this bill also was to kind of address a lot of the development in cities where cities like Surfside, had strict regulations that would not let anything come in. And it basically forces us to sit down with the developers and ask them, and try to come up with a project that aligns with both the town needs and would fit into the town a little bit better. I can tell you I've started having conversations with these people. They are willing to come to the table and have a conversation. We do want to protect our town. We don't want to start seeing towers going up all over. We can't manage the infrastructure. It would destroy what has made Surfside what it is. And just to address, I always hear that people are coming to me saying that I want taller buildings on Collins Avenue, which is, first of all, it's locked in our charter. You can't go past 120 feet, but I don't have the luxury of leaving town at 5 o'clock and going to a large home in Coral Gables. I live here with you. I live across the street from the ocean. I don't want taller buildings. I like what we have. It's what attracted me here to this community in the first place. So we will try to have conversations with them. Otherwise, we'll just have to fight it. Bell Harbor is fighting their fight. We'll fight ours. I can tell you, there is probably not another mayor in this entire state that knows Live Local better than I. I still work with the state legislatures on it. I still advocate against it. There's a new version of the bill coming out now that is going to be very detrimental to, and it takes away the tools that we were able to use in the past, which allowed us to kind of curtail some of these projects by, for example, requiring parking or impact fees, and they are taking this all away. So it does make our position a lot more difficult, but we will do everything in our power to protect our town and what it is that attracted us here in the first place. Guys, I just want to remind you again, for those that are joining, press *3 on your phone and you'll be able to be part of this conversation. Again, I want to hear this from you. I want to have this open conversation. We're not screening the questions. You can ask me anything. So again, please press *3 and you'll be connected to the conversation. If you're shy, you can leave the question with the operator. They'll type it out for me. Otherwise, I really want to hear from you. This is an interesting one. Martin, thank you, Martin, for this question. Who paid for your trip to Dubai? All right. I'm glad this came up because I hear this a lot, even from my friends that like to kid me about it. I will tell you that my trip to Dubai was part of a trip to the Middle East, Israel, and Dubai. My son joined the IDF, the Israeli military, over a year before I was a mayor. I knew his graduation date, and I had planned this trip to the Middle East before I was even a mayor. I paid for this trip myself. The town did not pay for it. Developers paid for it. This came out of my own expense. And it was arranged and coordinated and scheduled long before I was even sitting in office. Why it became controversial is because, one of the initiatives I started was a committee of the family members of the Champlain collapse, some of the survivors. And one of their points that they kind of had me pull out that they wanted was they wanted to obtain land. Now, we all know the building came down, a developer purchased it, the families and the survivors were paid out, but they still wanted to have land for that memorial on the actual site. And I had this discussion with them well ahead of the trip, and I said, look, I'll try to obtain it. I was having conversations with their liaison that was down here, but I said, I'll be out there. I'm going to make a call and see if I can sit down with the head of this company that purchased it. And that's what I did. And I went down. I was transparent about it, unlike what is out there. They knew I was going out there, and I would make it a priority to get a meeting with him, which I did. I had a half-hour, 40-minute meeting out of a 5-day trip over there. And when I came back, I let them know about my trip. I even spent 45 minutes talking to someone about this trip, one of the family members, because they had just come back from Dubai as well. So contrary to what is out there and the misinformation, this was not a secret. This was very transparent. I took time out of my own vacation to try to get something for the families But this was not paid for by developers or the town. Obviously, the optics were not great, but I can tell you that this was also investigated by ethics and, from what I understand, the public corruption. So I'm sitting here today because everything was above board and kosher. And speaking of trips, Jackie is asking, they say that you spent a lot of time traveling to Tallahassee. How is it helpful for Surfside? All right, yes, I've heard that too. And for some reason, I don't know why that is considered a bad thing. The elected officials before me never really went, but if you go there, you'll see the elected officials there. And like I kind of said before, it is our job. Part of our job, we're legislators, we control the budget, and we also, part of that is bringing money back in. So it's actually the mayor's job as, the face of the city to go out and lobby on behalf of our city. I went out there asking for grants, appropriations, and just understanding a grant is something that the state puts out for specific projects. They make money available to towns if you go and ask for it. And even when you ask for it, you have to follow a certain process. An appropriation is literally just an ask for money for something that we want. That really requires lobbying. That requires getting, your local state representatives and senators to put in the bill asking for it. It requires, if you want to be successful, to go down and meet with the right people on the different committees to explain why it is you're asking the state for money. And really, I was very successful in that, and most of it I would attribute because I was there explaining on a personal level. For example, I was asking for certain, to get funding for the lights that are currently being put up on 90th and 88th. And I brought up how a resident who was pregnant got hit trying to cross the street. Having a conversation and bringing up real people, real scenarios attributed to the success of the appropriations that I obtained. I would note also that I was the first mayor of Surfside and still am the only mayor to bring back appropriations for a town. That's because of the relationships I build. That's because of, our state representative who stood with us, Fabian Basabi, who was amazing. The senators are senators because every bill and every request has to have support on both sides. But being up there, it's not just enough to put in a bill. You have to follow this through and act for it. There's also, as I said, I was up there combating Live Local. There was an Unsafe Structures Act, which essentially allowed developers to tear down housing that, that were older buildings and things like that were technically deemed historic. If you look at that bill, there's actually a carve-out that says a municipality under 2 square miles on a barrier island with less than 2,000 people is exempt. That is an exemption for Surfside that I was able to put in there to protect, the more historic part of Surfside. But all of that only happens when you're up there asking. The last thing I was working on, which really didn't get enough visibility, and it's something I want to continue because I didn't have the opportunity to finish, was the loan forgiveness on our water bills. So we all notice in Surfside our water bills are super high. That is primarily because previous administrations never wanted to raise the rate accordingly with the cost. And suddenly 10 years later, we got hit with this massive 300% increase. But at this point, or at least the point when I went up, we owed the state about $20 million for this project. And I was working very closely with the CFO of the state of Florida, who was a personal friend. And we were working to forgive that loan, which would have alleviated the cost to residents. We could have lowered our water bills, and it would have allowed us to obtain additional, loans from the state to improve other projects. So that is something I would definitely continue to work on, even though our CFO went off to be a congressman, so I've got to establish new relationships. But that is definitely one of the reasons why I'm up there. So in closing, and to try to shorten that answer, spending the $3,000 or whatever it was to travel, leaving my family staying in a dinky, moldy motel, equated to millions and millions of dollars for our city. So, I think the trade-off was pretty fair, and that is the job. So again, ladies and gentlemen, if you're still on and joining, well, obviously you're still on if you're doing this, please press *3 to be part of the conversation. I really want to hear from you. Before we get to the next question, I just want to show our polls are indicating right now that 42% are saying that traffic is the biggest issue. 23% is saying overdevelopment is the issue. 10% is flooding and resiliency. 19% is pedestrian safety, and 6% is others. So hopefully I'll hear about the others. But I do want to address a traffic question that came in. Joseph is asking, What is your plan for Byron Avenue and Carlisle Avenue? Heavy traffic due to ways redirecting drivers from Collins and 88. I think everybody on this side of town, at least in the residential neighborhood, has seen, cars piling up and sitting in traffic. And this is not isolated. This happens daily. There are certain times that we can't even drive out of our own city and kind of feel trapped. And it's gotten worse and worse. This is, there's immediate remediation that can happen, such as, addressing some of the construction development that is ongoing on Collins Avenue. We have 2 projects happening simultaneously across the street from each other. I can tell you when I was in office and we approved those projects, there was a plan in place to ensure that that wasn't going to happen. Somehow that changed over the last year, but that has to be addressed again because it creates a funnel and it forces people off of Collins and, as Joseph said, into the residential area. Now, traffic in general, and I know this was one of the bigger things on the flyer, so I'm glad we get to talk about it. Traffic is going to require to address traffic is going to require more than just Surfside, right? This current administration, they tried gates, they threw a stop sign, they made one thing one-way, two-way, and I'm seeing Ellie also has a traffic question, so hopefully this will address it. To address traffic, we're seeing it come in from Collins. We're seeing them come down Carlisle, Abbott, Byron. I mean, the city is in gridlock. And I'm talking about not just Collins, but Surfside residential areas in gridlock. And everybody seems to have a different opinion of why that is, right? It's the light, the timing of the light that went up in front of Bell Harbor shops. It's the construction on the street. It's, a funnel in Bay Harbor because there's a light off. What I can tell you is I'm not a traffic engineer. Neither is anybody in office right now. And to do this is going to require expertise. So what I will tell you is I've already started conversations with the other municipalities because it is going to take the other municipalities, that relationship, that interaction to address this. And not just because we're talking, but because the solution might lie in another city, right? Bay Harbor might have to do something. Bell Harbor might have to do something. Miami Beach might have to change some of their lighting, the timing, the roads, the directions. All of this is going to require coordination. Now, I'm fortunate, I haven't put it out there yet, but I've been endorsed by both Sunny Isles, Bell Harbor Mayor, Bay Harbor Mayor, and because we've had an established working relationship and they understand that, we come to the table to get things done for all our cities because we are all connected at the end of the day. This issue is not a Byron Avenue issue, it's not a Carlisle issue, it's a 33154 issue. And it is going to require all our participation. So I can tell you that throughout my talks over the last couple of months, these cities have already committed that we will be bringing in a professional service to come in and study the issue. Hopefully it's not government and it takes too long. We'll study it. I've had assurances already from our partners in Tallahassee because it is going to take their cooperation that once we prepare a proper MOT, which is a maintenance of traffic, that will include, solutions with lights or whatever it is, and I don't know what it is yet. It may be something big, it may be something small, but I already have the assurances of the other cities that they will play along and understanding that it's going to require all of us, and the assurances of Tallahassee that they will pass and initiate anything that we bring forward, provided obviously it's not just us throwing spaghetti on the wall, but an actual plan that has been coordinated and created by professionals. So there's some immediate things that we can do, but at the end of the day, we're definitely going to address this as a community, as a 33154 community, Miami Beach, Sunny Isles, and we'll address this together and, God willing, see major changes. I hope, Ellie, that answered your question as well, because I know you were asking about that. Okay, so this is an interesting question from Mark, and I saw something on Nextdoor about this. What do you do for a living? There's talks that you're a gun dealer. Interesting. I heard something like that last time I ran. So actually, my background is in design and marketing. I've progressed through time as the industry changed. Computers were invented and the internet. Right now, I am a UX architect and director. So what I do is I build out applications and systems. I'm in technology primarily. And what I do and my specialty is companies that are dealing with, that will deal with government contracts. I worked for a company that built software for prisons and law enforcement, for a company that built software for healthcare industries that bill VA and Medicaid to federal and different states. And the specialty that I bring to the table is essentially planning and architecting an act that can expand and fit all the different services and requirements that many states have. So long story short, I'm in technology. I'm also an engineer. I've built out some products. I have a couple of patents on products that I've manufactured or in the process of manufacturing, including a non-lethal. So I've patented a non-lethal device that is designed to save lives, not take lives. That's in the middle of being, it's in production. Maybe that's where the rumors are coming from because they see my name. The product is called First Tier Defense. It sounds very scary, but it's actually designed to save lives. So hopefully one day that will get out soon. So we have a question here. They don't want to give the name and they don't want to speak. So how do you think you can improve the value of homes in Surfside, given that some property rights have been taken away by the current administration? And this is a very, obviously, probably one of the most controversial. Maybe it wasn't on the poll as the largest issue facing Surfside, but it's definitely controversial because we are trying to maintain that balance of preserving what makes our town so special, but at the same time, you know, there's people that are coming down that are taking advantage of what's existed, the rights that have existed. I'm going to specify they are rights because contrary to what is out there, and I'll say this publicly, when I was in office, I never changed the zoning. Zoning was always for the residential. It was always 40% of your lot with 80% on top. That has never changed. Homes did not get bigger. What you're seeing is people coming down, the property value went up, and people are actually investing and taking advantage of every square inch they were always allowed to build. I never increased zoning. Even Mr. Burkett didn't, agreed to that, except that his gripe with me wasn't that I didn't reduce zoning. And there are problems with reducing zoning. The town right now has ongoing litigation. Somebody sued the town for the Byrd-Harris Act, which essentially says that if a municipality takes away the value of a property, they have to reimburse it or give them exclusions. We're being sued right now under SB 180, which says that cities can't make their, again, a state law that says towns can't make their zoning more restrictive, retroactive from August 2024. And there's also another bill, I think it was 1420 or something that came out a couple of years ago, Senate Bill 1420, that basically it doesn't allow for municipalities to lock their zoning in a charter. And I don't have to tell you, over the last 3 years, I think we've had 3 referendum items over the 2 years, which, by the way, cost residents money. 3 referendums trying to lock our zoning regulations in the charter. We have another one coming up in 3 weeks. The problem with that is, again, it violates Florida statute, and I have this down, 163.3167-7C. And what this says specifically is that cities can't lock their zoning in a charter. So people have sued the town because they feel that their property rights have been taken away. The town will have to address this. I think this current referendum that is on the ballot will be very telling and will definitely be telling me where the town wants to go with this. Do they want to continue fighting and expending funds, fighting our residents, or will we conform and go back to state law and put everything back the way it was for the last 3 decades? So, it's a complex issue, but again, I think the residents need to be the ones speaking on it. So I'm glad it's on the ballot because that will be very telling as to, do the residents want to spend that money and fight our own residents and the lawsuits, or are we going to be compliant with state law? So sort of on the same topic, right? Chuck here is asking, what's your position on the FAR, and will you bring back the so-called monster houses? Size about the monster houses. So again, personally, I have my own convictions when it comes to property rights, and that's where my feeling is, because I'm a homeowner. I live in a small home that I purchased. I have no plans on building it. It's fine for me and my family, but I also bought it with a certain amount of rights. So I have my personal convictions on that. But again, when you're in office, it's not about what you want, it's about what the people want. So there is, as I stated, a referendum. The residents will be speaking, and as an elected official, if I'm in office, it's my job to listen to the residents. So I'll be taking the cue from you guys, hopefully. Next question is also does not want to go live, so again, I appreciate that. What is your current relationship with the Damak developer from Dubai? Have you talked to them lately? There is no activity on the on-site location at 8887 Hollis Avenue. My current relationship is no. Once I'm out of office, I'm not very relevant. I haven't spoken to them, and that's where it is now. I hear rumors from people and organizations about the property. I don't know what is happening. I'm sure as soon as I get into office, I will get an update. I could find the update, but I don't know where it's holding. The building was approved by right. Essentially, they were allowed to build what they were allowed to build within the confines and the setbacks, and that's where we left it. There were certain stipulations about the entrance, the exit. It was a complex issue because there is a memorial being built adjacent to that site. What is currently happening, I know when I left it, they were working on the foundation, and that could take a while. They got to dig it out, get the water out, build the foundational elements of it. So I don't know where they're holding. I can definitely find that out. And if you want to email me later, you can email me at shlomoforsurfside@gmail.com. I can look into the status of this and get back to you on that. Again, just to remind everybody, we don't have a lot of time. We have 10 minutes left, but I really want to hear from you. So please press *3 if you're just joining to be part of this conversation. Francine is asking, why do you hate women? Okay. I do not hate women. I have a wife of almost, 25 and a half years. I better get this right. 1 second. It is February, so it is 25 years and 3 months. So I've been very happily married for a quarter of a decade. I've got 2 daughters. I've got sisters. I've got a mother. I grew up with my grandmother. I love women. Not all of them, just mine. But I don't have any hatreds towards anyone because of their gender, that's for sure. Actually, growing up as an Orthodox Jew, which is my background, our culture holds women to a different standard, right? We believe that your status as a Jew is passed on based on your mother. And the reason for that, you can have a Jewish father, not Jewish mother. At least for the Orthodox world, we look at the mother. And the reason for that is because women in our culture are revered to be more spiritual. So that connection with the baby relies on the mother. Now, we as men have certain commandments. We have to wear the kippah on our heads. You'll see men with strings. We have very interesting customs. Most of them don't apply to women, and that's not because they're any less, but quite the opposite. It's because they are more than us. They don't need these spiritual elements to be connected. We believe that they're on a higher level than us. We grew up revering women. That's the culture I come from. I definitely don't hate women. There's so many of them out there that I really admire, and that's, I think, enough on that question. Pat is asking, where are the police? I don't see them patrolling anymore. We've got, I'm fortunate to live on a corner where the police are doing their roadblocks and their speeding checks, so I see them every day out there. If you're not seeing them through the community, at the end of the day, that is coming from leadership. Leadership has to prioritize, and not necessarily even the mayors and the commission. We choose the right managers. We choose, the manager ends up choosing the chief, and the priority of the police department lies within their own leadership. So if we're hearing from residents that they're not getting that, they're not seeing that visibility, we have to give that information and that feedback back to our manager, our town manager, our administrator, and the police chief, and hopefully make sure that they're getting out and being more visible. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got 5 minutes left on this call, so please, I'm going to try to get a little faster. There's a bunch of questions I'm going to try to get to. And again, if you have any questions, press *3. There will be I just want to remind you also, there's going to be a mayoral debate on March 3rd at 6:30 p.m. You can join live in Town Hall. You can watch on the town website. You can tune in to channel 663, I think it is, and it will be recorded. So if you want to watch it later, you can do that, and hopefully we'll be able to address some questions there as well. I have another one. Mayor, do you think being religious could interfere with your job as mayor? Actually, quite the contrary. I think being religious is, and I've said this before, being religious means that you have to be subservient to a higher cause, right? We spend a fortune paying for kosher food because it goes through a different process. We usually send our kids to private school, which is basically sending your kids to college for 10, 20 years. We have a lot of things that we do that don't make sense to us, but we do it because we're told that this is a better way to connect to our Creator. And essentially, we are taught from birth to give over to a higher power. I think public office is an extension of that, right? Because we're not doing things for ourselves, what makes sense to us. It's for the community. It's for the better good. And I really think it plays into that. If you're referring to the Sabbath or things like that, I had my phone on me when I was the mayor. 2 people had that number, the town manager and chief of police. They were briefed on when I needed to pick up and not. If it's a life safety issue, obviously I can break the Sabbath and pick up the phone. But I had no need. I think I got a call once about something that was happening, and I think that was October 7th, and we needed to bring, more of a police presence to the synagogues because everyone was scared. But other than that, there's really, we have a town administration. It doesn't really require the mayor to be hands-on on a daily basis. I hope that answers the question. Marina, what is your vision to help improve pedestrian safety? Sorry, Marina, I didn't realize a lot of people have wanted to read the question, but Marina, if you want to go live, we have got 3 minutes. It's all yours.
Okay, so yeah, do you have any vision how to improve pedestrian safety?
Yeah, I've had a lot of initiatives that I wanted to do. We can see one of those initiatives right at the park between 96th and 94th. We have a lot of kids, a lot of families here. Sidewalks was an initiative. We were able to build one. We had more planned. It's a complex issue because obviously people don't want to give up the easement in front of their house either because they have hedges or mailboxes or they've been used to it being part of their property. I don't want to cut into that. At the same time, there needs to be some sort of safe method. I know you used to walk your dog. We walk our dog in the streets. We're on there with cars that seem to be ever going faster and faster, especially with this incoming traffic from out of Surfside. We are in a dangerous situation. Our lighting here is terrible. One of the items I want to continue on was the street lighting. We had that planned, approved. We went through months of a process because everything in government takes months. And then the administration that was working for me kind of threw it into the undergrounding project. They didn't want to, do it as a separate project, and unfortunately, it never came to fruition. So 99% of that work is done. I'd really like to put out the lighting on the street. That includes engineering and a lot of different things. So hopefully I get to finish that. That will safen the streets a bit at night because it's pitch black. Guys, we got 2 minutes left, so, we'll have one more question after this. But I would like to revisit some sort of pedestrian walking within the city because we are a walkable village. We pride ourselves on that. Everything is here. But it is going to take resident input because for every give, there's a take, and we have to make sure that people are okay with that. I'm going to pick the last question because we don't have any time. And I do want to remind you, you can always email me later if you haven't heard from me, shlomo4surfside@gmail.com, shlomo4surfside@gmail.com. There is going to be a mayoral debate in a week, I believe, on March 3rd at 6:30 p.m. It'll be in Town Hall. You can join live, watch it online on the town website or on Channel 663. It will be recorded so you can watch it later. Maybe I'll do another one of these again because this has been very successful and there's so much I still want to address. So hopefully I'll do another one of these. Last question, Asher. Flags. All right, you guys are making this last one. I got 1 minute, so I'll try to fly through it. How do you approach symbolic decisions like flag flying or cultural celebrations in a way that reflects the whole community values? That is a good question. Obviously one that has become a controversial issue during my first administration. I think the key words here is the last part of your question, which is reflect the whole community value. If we live in a generation where everything that we do is controversial, you can't have an opinion without somebody having another one. That is the line that we have to navigate, right? And it's very difficult because you don't want to isolate one group when you're trying to represent the other, which is why initially I kind of just stuck with, the position that the government flagpole should have the American flag, the state of Florida, the police, the POW, whatever government flagpoles. But people want to feel represented. And later on, I did try to put a policy forward that would create a clear policy, right? Because cities cannot just choose one or the other. You do open yourself up to liability if I say yes to one group and no to the other without a policy in place. So I did try to put a policy forward. It didn't go through. I would definitely revisit that because I want to make sure that residents feel that they are represented at the same time without offending everyone else. So there's going to be a process for that, I hope, and one that would be put on the books. Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to thank you for joining. I am getting the cutoff signal. Again, there's a debate coming up soon, which will address hopefully some more questions. I will probably put up another one of these because this was amazing, and I loved hearing from you. Guys, if you see me on the street, please just pull me over and ask me your questions. Send me an email. I'm extremely accessible. I would say my address, but maybe not. But you all know me. I'm not hard to find. Please, I'll be going door to door, having a great time meeting you guys, and hopefully I get to you. So thank you so much, guys, and let's do this again. Have a great night. Oh,